So it is Sunday night. It's about 10 o'clock, and I am Tenacious Earl, and I am here for another trip to the Tenacious Dugout. This is not necessarily a dugout, although I guess it's my basement, and it was dug out of the ground, and so, hey, why not? It's a dugout, and we can go here and we can hide out when we want to avoid some of the things in the world that are troubling us. A lot of us go to our own little Tenacious dugout. Uh, Maybe it's, this is kind of like a workshop, if you will. It's a very small workshop. Um, to do some of us in the world do, like, I'm turning on a fan because it's kind of warm and humid down here. To do woodworking projects, or I don't know, paint, or make model airplanes, or who knows what. There's a whole list of things. A lot of us here on this channel do the tabletop thing, but I've kind of intended the dugout to be a little more of a free-for-all, sort of getting stuff off my chest, answering any questions anybody that happens to come in here on the live stream. If you have any questions, go ahead. The title of this one is NFLame. And so I guess we will start there. I was going to come up with an agenda this time, but I decided against the agenda because, I don't know, because I was kind of running out of time. I'm an early riser, and so I get to this time of night, and if I spend too much time organizing and getting it ready, then it's going to be almost bedtime before I get ready to record. So with that said, the title refers to a general trend in the National Football League where more or less anything goes when it comes to the New England Patriots. Whatever they want, they get. And I'm sure every Patriots fan that's out there will say, "Oh, I love to eat the salt from your tears. It tastes great on my New England clam chowder," or whatever. I know I'll get some thumbs down for all that. But, this Antonio Brown thing is just another example of it. And, it's frankly, it's tired because, Antonio Brown isn't nearly the jerk that he makes himself out to be. He wanted out of Pittsburgh. He acted like a jerk. He wanted out of Oakland. He acted like a jerk. He got where he wanted to go. Now he's going to act like a normal person, I'm sure. If I'm wrong, you can comment on this video in 3 months or whatever and say, "I told you so," but I'm sure of it. He will be model citizen, and it's just lame. It's lame that you have 32 teams and 31 of them are just so spineless that they will not. And you've got one of these other 31 teams that got worked over because of it. I mean, they gave up draft picks for this guy. What? Tell me what is their motivation not to file a grievance? They should. I mean, it's not that far-fetched to think that all along there was some sort of plan there. It's really not that hard to figure it out. It didn't take long for Brown to sign a deal with the Patriots. So they knew something was along there. They weren't shopping on the open market. They had a deal, and it was just getting the Raiders to let him go. And that's number two. Why did the Raiders let him go? Great question. Sure, they get some money back. So you're basically telling any of your players, if you don't like our team, just act like a complete buffoon, and especially the good players, and we'll just release you, and you can go and sign with anybody you want. That's not the way a corporation acts. That's not the way that that's not the way the Steelers acted. They had Le'Veon Bell sit a whole season because they let him do his thing, and they paid him. I guess they didn't have to pay him, but they could have done any number of things with Brown. They could have just had him be, they paid assets for him. And so if he's sitting on the bench, oh well, at least he's not. So at least he's not out being productive for somebody else on your dime. But and they're thinking, well, it's not. You're going to say, well, it's not their dime because they get that money back. They didn't have to pay him that. Well, it's still their dime because they traded two draft picks in good faith, knowing that he was under contract. And it's for the Patriots to reward somebody acting in such an unprofessional manner, but it's just par for the course. Roger Goodell will do absolutely nothing because he is a Patriots patsy, and everything that he has done, including the Deflategate thing, which was more or less a sham to begin with, that I'm convinced was made to appear as though he was trying to be a jerk to Kraft and company, when in theory he is nothing but Kraft's little stooge. So, all right, having gotten that off my chest, let me see what our comments. We've got Derek, Chiefs fan, that says that Brown is a fruitcake, and he is kind of fruity as far as like nuts in the head. Mark Russell is disappointed by the Lions game. Yeah, I mean, nobody likes ties. Well, in America, the rest of the world, ties are commonplace and an acceptable result. It's actually neater strategy. There's a strategy to ties that Americans just, it's probably just too sophisticated for us for some reason. We need to win because, whatever, we're tough arg, but in other sports, a tie is, especially international sports, a tie is an acceptable result for somebody who's playing against a better team to take a point. Instead of getting 3, you'll take a point because it's better than none. So, anyway, yeah, but the Lions, the Lions are another team. So here is another thing that is NFLame, is that if you are a former Patriots coach or player, you are going to be given a job by almost any team, and you're going to perform lackluster compared to most everybody else. But it doesn't matter. You're going to keep getting tries, and we're just going to keep taking guys. This Flores from Miami, his team put on an excellent performance. Granted, I'm sure they're tanking. Everybody else is convinced of that. But you've got Patricia there in Detroit, who, all of these guys take New England's methods, and they just, Bill and Ernie Adams do it the way they do it. They are smart. I'm going to take what we did up there, and I'm just going to do it. And they're missing the key component, which is that they understand the other team's playbook. So, and what calls are being played, what calls are being made. We've gone through this. You already know it. They're never going to find it. They're never going to figure it out. They're never going to care because the NFL is lame. And so there. Hawkinson, Raiders won't file a grievance because they don't want to admit they're fooled. Sure, that's one thing. They also are moving to a different market. They're getting a stadium, and I think this is all. I think also they long ago, Al Davis crossed the NFL. And in the NFL, if you cross the NFL, then you pay your penance long term. And so this probably is another thing that can, go to salve over the wounds of old, where Al Davis was just a maverick. who it worked for him for a long time, but then in his later years, his maverick nature just kind of like got the better of him. He started doing really stupid things, personnel-wise and such, staff, all that kind of thing. Tribe fan Jerry, let's see, terrible timeout call, it cost him the win. Jerry's not a football fan, so that's not a surprise. Mark was playing Legends of Boxing. Good idea. Okay, so let's get off of the NFL here, because aside from my team winning, which it was so the Bills are also a team that currently has a former New England staffer, Brian Dable. He takes a second-year quarterback who's a project quarterback, and he calls 17 passes to start the game. Let me repeat. He calls 17 passes in a row to start the game. Bills end up with 4 turnovers in probably 2 or 3 in that stretch, but then it goes on, and they end up with 4 of them and are getting schooled by the Jets, although the Jets didn't look that great either. They have a kicker problem. They have a defense that's really good. They have an offense that is just about not much different than the Bills. Not very efficient at times. Their offensive line is not good. They were just getting rolled by the Bills most of the game, the Bills' defensive line. But they kept the Bills around, and somehow they came back. So anyway, let's my team's 1-0. I'm happy about that. So let's next go to something that's a little bit more related to what a lot of you, well, I'll say it's pseudo-related. So fantasy baseball. And I'm in a fantasy baseball league that just ended. Had a chance to win it, and I lost to the last place team, and I'm extremely frustrated with it, because I have DeGrom, I have Kyle Hendricks, and DeGrom could have started today. Syndergaard could have started yesterday. Instead, the Mets started Stroman. He lost. Syndergaard lost today. My season is over. DeGrom starts tomorrow. I'm caught between wanting DeGrom and the Mets to just implode the rest of the season and go into the freaking tank. Or I would also, the other extreme is I'd love to see DeGrom throw a perfect game and have Hendricks throw a perfect game, so that way I can just declare myself the winner of this league, regardless that I got shafted by, and even worse is Madden deciding to flip Lester and Hendricks, and Lester got shelled today too. So, good for the Cubs. All you Cubs fans out there, I'm glad you guys got shelled today, and you can hit your thumbs down. I don't care. If it was Hendricks, it would have been 7 innings, no runs given up. And that's good. Have fun with that. Let's just say I will never draft Manny Machado before the 10th round, or maybe later. I will probably not draft him again. He is a frustrating case of blah, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't really take a look at Harper. I'm sure Harper has not been so great either, although I think in the last month he's been better. But so it was 3rd place instead of potentially 1st. But yeah, it's not like I was playing for money. It's not like it was just all for pride. But 2 really good pitchers. So all weekend, by Saturday afternoon, I knew that Hendricks was getting shelved for Lester. And so then I had to start going with alternative strategies to try to get my pitching stats and to chase the ERA thing. And so I was starting guys like Steven Brault and who was it? Is it Rodriguez? Derek Rodriguez for the Giants, and DeSclafani, who's been up and down. He had a decent outing, but not great. Just trying to piece together anything I could, and it didn't end up terrible. I was still better than most of the other teams in my league in terms of the pitching categories this week, but somehow I got to face the last place team who did get Max Scherzer for 2 starts this week. So that's the way it goes. That is what we call, fortune, the way that the chips fall, the way the dice roll, the way the cookie crumbles, whatever you want to say. There's lots of little, but see, my trouble was I had a bad draft. Fantasy baseball, if you get a good draft, the team almost plays itself. I think the guy who won, he still, so we get $200 of auction money for waiver guys. I think he spent a quarter of his, and I spent almost all of mine over the years trying to chase it because I had Machado, who was not pulling his weight. I drafted Tyone early on in the draft, and he has been out since like April and started maybe to, I had him on IR pretty much until August, and then I released him because he went from maybe to never. So, and the thing that really helped me out was my second pick was Rizzo, and I flipped him for DeGrom, and because DeGrom had a rough start, and I did okay focusing on pitching for a long time, and I flipped another trade for Justin Turner. He put in some, and then I picked up Ryan McMahon. He had some offensive stats. I had Brian Reynolds, who has been a nice rookie. So it wasn't all bad, but it's just frustrating when when the numbers don't go your way, and there's nothing you can do about it except just let it play out, and you keep your fingers crossed, and it doesn't get it. So Derek says Machado is MLB lame. Yeah, the Padres themselves are kind of that way at this point. They seem like they should be better now. Although I guess they have some pitching. I think Lucchese's done pretty well, and a couple others. But yeah. So let's see. Jerry's in 7th in his fantasy baseball. Yeah, so Rob is in the house. He says, "Where's the Browns fans?" Well, I'm not gonna. I guess if we want to turn it back to the NFL a little bit, there's that. That the Browns have been the sexy, maybe first round bye team. Along with Kansas City. That's for anybody who thought that Tom Brady might not look like he does tonight, which is everybody's dream, but except New England fans. But no such luck. So I think Cleveland was sort of the sexy. Oh, maybe they'll be the ones to finish number 2 in the AFC, and Mayfield threw 3 interceptions and didn't have such a great day. So sorry, Cleveland fans. I think they're still a good team, but Rome wasn't built in a day. I think the philosophy of keeping the OC on as the head coach may not have been a great move, but I don't know. You have to give it a few weeks here and see. I do think the class that Mayfield and Darnold and Allen and Rosen, Jackson, he's playing like a minor league team down in Miami this week, so he looked really good. Let's see what happens when he starts facing some teams that are trying. I've got a stupid McAfee's up and don't show again. I don't want that. Why? Yeah, I guess maybe I should just start doing. See, that would make Jerry unhappy if I just said, "Oh, I'll start doing a Sunday evening NFL recap." No, I don't want to do that. It would be good to do on nights like this where we have to watch a stupid team play. But a lame team. Um, so Browns, yeah, and yeah. So yeah, we covered the Lions and the Cardinals. Yeah, the Browns still have this. I'd also say the Browns also still kind of have this specter hanging over them that they're sort of a team of miscreants. It's you know the way that um, the way that things went down with like Josh Gordon, and others. I don't know. It's and now Josh Gordon is Mr. Rehabilitated, whatever. I mean, it's just like another just super stupid, frustrating thing about this league is just the number of chances that a player gets as soon as he goes to one team in particular. Um, so let's see. What was that? Oh, another sports-related life topic that I can talk about. Joining a bowling league. I'm very happy about this. I would say my average is pretty decent, but I think I might have already mentioned about a bowling league. That's a possibility. If I have, then that's either old news or something. But the scores the first night were, it wasn't really a true first night. It wasn't like it was sort of an info night, free bowling to just make sure get teams together, and we still have to get all of the teams there on night number 1, which is coming up. I'm hoping that we can do that. I've really missed it. It's been 15 years since I bowled in an organized league. I know Larry Harris, who comes on the channel some. I've seen some of his exploits. I think he's thrown a couple perfect games, or at least one that I can remember, in the last year or so. So, it's a sport that, or game, whatever you want to call it, that is, you throw a handicap system in there, and it just makes it a lot of fun. You have a beer or two, maybe have a little prize fund going. I don't know, or a little beer fund, a little, there's some card game you play, and just try to have some fun and socialize, and so. But there's lots of things you can do that. Heck, could start a Stratomatic night or a History Maker baseball night with a bunch of guys, and could do the same exact thing. And but it's easier to find a lot of guys who want to bowl as opposed to a lot of guys in your area that want to roll dice. But it's not impossible. We all can dream, can't we? Yeah. So Eli got benched because the Giants were getting destroyed. Well, so Rob asked, do I average 175? I was right around there when I stopped 15 years ago, so I will be thrilled if I can get within 5 pins of that, I would say. The whole point in a handicap league, not to say that you want to do it intentionally, because that seems like you're kind of cheating the system, but what I would say is I don't like doing a ton of practice before leagues start up. In a handicap league, I kind of like to just, maybe 1 week, just because, I kind of like tear open my thumb, but then, that goes away. But you get used to things. Your average is down a little bit, and then hopefully over the course of the league you improve, and that does work well with having a handicap. So your scores improve and your handicap helps you, as opposed to starting better than what you usually average. Then you get a lower handicap, and then if you kind of like regress, you're pretty much hurting your team. So, am I a better golfer or bowler? I would say I'm better at golf. Probably by the time spring rolls around, I would say I'm. No, yeah, because it's tough for me to say because if I were to play golf and bowl for similar time frames and keep doing it, I would get better at golf than at bowling. Like it's, um, my mechanics in golf are more consistent for the most part. My bowling mechanics, I I tend to throw. I tend to try to throw a ball, like I tend to throw a hook ball that is maybe a little too powerful to control. And again, that comes with bowling a lot of games. The more games you bowl, the more control you can get with that. But there's less room for error when you're talking, you know, 15 board hook, 20 board hook. You're a lot of times you're it's really fine as opposed to I think if you're throwing a little bit smaller of a hook, you can and I think the motion tends to be more repetitive, kind of like a so in pro bowling, one of the greats of all time was Walter Ray Williams Jr. He was also a championship horseshoe pitcher, and that's what I mean is that I think those two motions have some similarities. They can both be very repetitive, especially if you are what. It's weird that they give them these names. We're talking pro bowlers and everything, but there's kind of like there's three schools as far as the pro bowlers. There's, and it's going to sound, it sounds like a little perverted. It's not meant to be, but it just kind of, there's strokers, which are the guys that just throw, that's your Walter A. Williams, your Norm Dukes, Brian Voss is a little bit like that. There's a lot of guys from more recent, and some of the old timers, I would say, are more in that realm. Probably, although I didn't see much, like the Earl Anthony's, a little bit more just consistent, not looking for power, just sort of looking for accuracy. Then you have the crankers, which are nowadays you get these guys like Belmonte who doesn't even use a thumb in the ball, who just want the absolute highest number of revolutions when they throw a hook. And it really mixes the pins up. It's also really hard to control, but these guys are phenomenal. And then you have the third group is the ones that are in between, which are called the tweeners, and that's kind of like your Pete Weber's. He could throw a power ball if he needs to, but he's not going to throw as powerful one as some, but he also is a guy who can dominate, or used to be able to dominate, and probably still does at times with something that's a little more kind of straight up the approach. So 5 and 10 pin, 12 handicap. Rob was a 12 handicap golfer before. Yeah, I was single digit, but it's been a long time since I've golfed enough to be. I've had a couple of even par rounds, but it's been a long time since I got myself to that consistency level. You've got to be hitting your greens. You've got to have your short game together, and drove a 335-yard green once. That's great. That's hopefully in the summer. Yeah, that's pretty good if it's like spring and a little wet and you don't get much roll. The course I play, it's got one that's about that yardage, but it's almost a lot of us consider the two. So there's two holes on the course I grew up on. One is straight up the hill, the other straight down. This one's probably more like 320 though, and it's down the hill, so it's really a bit of a stretch to say that you drove at 320 if you drive the green. But I have driven that green before, but it's I can hit a pretty good drive, but my short game is when it comes around, it's pretty good, but takes a while, and that's kind of the thing that takes time and takes serious attention. Weber, so Weber was definitely fun to watch. So anyway, back to uh, this is a new center for me, and I'm finding that the lanes are, well, one of two things: either the lanes are a lot he- more heavily oiled than what I've ever bowled on before, or my bowling ball, which is of an old, um, it's the reactive resin, so it's an older technology from maybe the early 2000s or late 90s. So either it could be that it's old technology, and or that I had, um, from what I understand, the resin balls, they soak up oil like it's, like a sponge, and it can seriously degrade its ability to grip the lane. And so I tried to do a little bit of sort of a hot soak, um, some sort of home remedies that I found online to try and get it sorted out. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Roger says they seem to use a lot more short oils than they used to. Um, yeah, I'm not as, I will say I haven't been able to, I haven't had much chance to like watch the pro bowling circuit much. Um, the traditional pattern is sort of this, like a Christmas tree, right? So, heavier in the middle, lighter on the edges. It's kind of your league pattern. It is there. You know, any center that puts it out there is just trying to get your league bowlers to come out, and they want them to be happy. They don't want them to go somewhere else, because the Christmas tree is a scoring. It, if you pull the ball a little bit, it holds the line, hits the pocket because it finds more oil. If you lose it to the right, it comes back harder, finds the pocket again. It's very forgiving. Um, I don't know. I'm not sure if this may have been a little more of a flat oil pattern than what I'm used to. Maybe it was a longer oil pattern, which also would just mean that you're not getting to the dry section for till the very very end. And by that point, where I usually throw out to probably the 3 or 4 board and bring it back. And that's starting from the left side of the lane. I was starting at the middle dot with my left foot, and basically throwing up between the first and second arrow, or maybe the second arrow, and just kind of like trying to keep it tight. And if what I did doesn't make the ball work any better, then I'm just going to have to adjust and throw a little bit narrow, shallower of a bend. And what the thing that I found funny was, and I mean, it can make sense. I have a plastic ball that's sort of my spare ball. I feel like that was having a better reaction to the oil pattern than my reactive resin. And so, although it was a bit more of a gradual bend as opposed to the reactive resin one, was getting a little bit more snap at the back end. Anyway, I'm probably boring a lot of people who aren't bowlers, but yeah. So Rob's saying about a lighter ball. That's one I've heard that the recent uh, held beliefs are that anything from 14 to 16 really doesn't make a whole lot of difference when it comes to carry and et cetera, et cetera. So if you're throwing a 16, If you're starting to get a little older, you might be okay just throwing a 14 and getting a little advantage on throwing a lighter ball. But so talking boxing here in the channel. I've never played a boxing game on the table. Tabletop Earl has. He's done that quite a bit. I guess anything. What am I at here? I'm at 36 minutes, and I'm getting close to my bedtime. So one thing I do want to talk about is, and I'm going to have to cut away from, although maybe not. Let me see. I will have to a little bit here, I think. Yeah. So, so this crazy Premier League Cup, I'm calling it the crazy Prem Cup. It's the 2017-2018 cards, the same set. So, I think I mentioned this in my last video. I found a schedule problem in my alternative Premier League, and so I have scuttled it. I have said I'm not happy with that. It's going to be too long of a project. There are some games out here on Tabletop Baseball Plus that I've played. They're going to stay there because they kind of show some of the gameplay. Not kind of, they do show some of the gameplay. But instead I'm doing this crazy Prem Cup, which is meant to be a mixing of the Premier League and in sort of a World Cup qualifying motif, if you will. So what that entails is I separated the league into pools of 5 pools of 4 teams each, and that was based on the 2016-2017 finish for each team. So the teams that were promoted from the championship level were included in the bottom 3 in that bottom pool, along with, I forget who it might have been, I can't remember. I showed this the last video. I'm just trying to reintroduce it a bit. So basically just like either a World Cup or a Euro, like the Euro tournament, they have these pools that they draw from, and they create the groups that way. So that's what I have done with this, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it up here. Oops, I don't want to do that yet. So these were the groups. So it was, I think it might have been Watford that was the final team. I think these 3 teams here, Newcastle United, Brighton and Hove Albion, Huddersfield Town, those were the 3 promoted teams. And Watford, I'm pretty sure, was the team that was the last to remain in the Premier League. Of course, 18, 19, 20 in the 2016-2017 Premier League were relegated to the Championship. And so this was based on the finishes. Tottenham, Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea were all in the top 4 that year. So that's how I did this, and I used some randomization to come up with these groups. And then I came up with the fixture list, which is here. So each team plays 2 games at home, 2 games away against all the other opponents. So it's probably even a little more fair than what I feel the World Cup is, like the World Cup group stage. Each team plays 3 games against the 4 teams in there. So there's 4 teams in the group. There are 3 opponents in the group they play, but someone ends up having to play 2. I guess the other thing is that everybody except the home team in the tournament in the World Cup is an away team. And so I guess in theory everybody plays 3 away games except the home team. They get to play 3 home games. But in this case, all the games are being played at Let me see. I wonder if I need to do it up here so that way you can see. So, as you can see, like this game, Newcastle United and Southampton, that was played at St. James Park. Palace and West Ham United at Selhurst, which is suburban London. So, just to full disclosure, the Group A games for the first match week, if you want to call it that, or match group, has been played. I will show you the results. I already did show you the results. I'll show them here again. Newcastle United. Oh, so actually I messed that up. So that's actually the whole way across here is week 1. So Newcastle United defeated Southampton 2-0. Southampton had a red card to Yoshida, who is one of their center backs. So he will miss the second game, and Ryan Bertrand, who is a left back, also picked up an injury that will cause him to miss the second game as well, which would be the game against Tottenham. Tough game there. So the second game of that first day, Crystal Palace hosting West Ham, and West Ham was victorious on a late winner. So another red card in that game. Crystal Palace picked it up. It was Wilfried Zaha. He got his second yellow in the 36 minutes, so Palace had to play 50-plus minutes down a man. There was also an injury to Johan Cabaye, which was only for that game, or for the rest of the game. But Lanzini scored. I think it's Manuel Lanzini's his name, and he scored for West Ham with 4 minutes left in regulation on a free kick, which gave them the 2-1 victory. So the Hammers go on the road and get the victory. And so early on here, we've got a table, and as you can see here, and I didn't mean, I've clicked too many stupid. Let's click do that. Newcastle and West Ham. Newcastle, because they won 2-0, are in first place on goal differential, but Tottenham has yet to play a game. Each match week, there's one team that has to be off, and so see how that goes. So then next we're going to have, let's go back to the screen and go back to the fixture list. It's going to be Manchester United and Swansea in Group B, followed by Liverpool and Brighton and Hove Albion. So, and then you got Huddersfield Town facing Arsenal. Arsenal, top-ranked team. And then Stoke and Leicester. And then finally in that first week, we've got West Brom and Watford, and then Everton and Chelsea. So that's not all the teams. We got 4 teams that have that week off, but then they're going to play 4 weeks in a row. Excuse me. So anyway, I kind of hate pulling the kind of ugly, bitter, cynical guy that I am, but that's what it is. I'm going to sound bitter. I'm going to sound upset about the way the NFL has gone the last decade plus, almost 2 decades now. Hopefully when Roger Goodell is replaced, they bring in someone who doesn't just kowtow to certain teams. But Derek says he wonders if MLS teams would get thumped by EPL teams on a tabletop. Yeah, that's a good question. You'd hope that things would be standardized in a way that would, because that's going to happen in real life, unfortunately, for MLS, as much as they'd like to make themselves to seem like a top league, they are taking players that are of retirement age from the EPL. I think you'd see an MLS team, if you move them to the Premier League, I think they would win a few games. I think they'd lose a lot of games and they'd draw a couple and they would face relegation. But, I guess it depends on which one, too, because there's a variety. You've got Atlanta and LAFC, who are both pretty good. Maybe they're at the level of a relegation zone team in the Premier League, but I still think that it would be tough for them. And so, yeah, I don't really have I don't think I have EPL in Soccer Blast. I definitely don't have MLS in ATBA, so I don't know how each of those sets of cards are ranked. I will say ATBA is somewhat, there's some basis on these team defense, team ratings, and the clutch points that help to sort of dictate some of the play and especially defensive chances. So just in those ratings, you can kind of elicit some push-pull. The other thing I want to talk about this project, the soccer, you ever have a project where you just want to create something like a database or a spreadsheet, and you just look at it and it seems way too monumental to ever be able to complete yourself, and it's just depressing. And so combine that with the thing with the fantasy baseball league and some of the other stuff this weekend, just leaves me feeling tired, a little frustrated, a little bitter. But it's going to get better. But some of the betterness comes from just talking with you guys. So I am going to go ahead and sign off here. Again, I've kind of got to get up early most days. I don't know about tomorrow. Maybe I'll sleep in a tad, but not too much, because the later I go to work, the more traffic I face. But having said that, I appreciate you guys hanging around here for almost an hour, chatting everything from the NFL to my bowling to my fantasy baseball. Hopefully, you feel free to leave a comment if you have any feedback or questions or need somebody to commiserate with on your own troubles. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to share texts. I'm not going to exchange texts. I'm not going to exchange instant messenger. But, maybe on here, a comment might get you a shout out or something at some point down the road. So look for some of the Tenacious Diamond Kings project. I was drawing a blank. It'll be sometime this week. Maybe 2 games if I can get the stuff out. I kind of have the soccer stuff out right now, and I do also want to get one of these crazy Prem Cup games on the channel. So be on the lookout for that at some point. I'm not sure how the timing is going to go. It's been kind of, I always say it's hectic, but it's hectic. So if you hit like, I would appreciate that. Especially if you like these dugout videos. I know I get some mixed ups and downs. I expect to get some downs because I'm talking crap about somebody's team, and there's lots of people in this world who have glommed on to the Patriots. And maybe if I had rooted for them as from this time I was a kid and suffered through some of their bad years, I'm sure I would hold on to them dearly. So, but okay, guys. Good night. I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed. See you next time. Thanks for dropping in on the dugout, and we will see you soon. I can't get it off of here. Yes, I can. Oh,